In this video, we will dive into the movie Clash of Titans. We will discuss the storyline, summarize the plot, explore the cast and characters. Additionally, we will cover the movie's production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide reviews and share personal reaction. So, let's get started. In ancient time, the gods led by Zeus, Jani and Hades betrayed their parents, the Titans, and banished them to the underworld with the help of the Kraken. As sea monsters born of heads, the gods divided the universe among themselves. Zeus took the skies, Poseidon took the seas, and Hades, tricked by Zeus, was left with the underworld. The gods created the mortals, whose faith in them assured their immortality. However, as time passed, mortals began to question them. A fisherman by name of Spiron Pat finds a casket afloat in the sea, bearing a baby still living and clasped in the arms of his mother's corpse. Spirops and his wife Marmara raise the baby as their own and name him Perseus. Years later, is fishing with his family when he witnessed soldiers from the city of Argos destroying a statue of Zeus. The gods inflated at this desertion, unleashed the furious flying beasts who pursue mortal sinner. The soldiers are attacked and slaughtered by the Furies. The Furies merge and take the form of heads, who destroy the ship Perseus and his family are on. His family perishes, but Perseus survives and is found by other survivors, soldiers from Argos led by Draco. Perseus is brought before king and queen, who are celebrating the campaign against the god. Their revelry is cut short by the arrival of Hades, who has been given leave by Zeus to punish the mortal for their defiance of the god. Hades proclaimed that in the upcoming solar eclipse, he will unleash the crackers against Aegon unleash the princess is offered as a sacrifice before leaving. He reveals that Perseus are damaged. Perseus is imprisoned by Draco and in captivity meets him of origin. Many years before, King also tried declaring war against the god. To make an example of him, Zeus impersonated Argos and impregnating his wife, Queen Danae. Driven and with rage, ordered the executioners of Danae and the newborn baby and cast them into the sea in the coffin. As punishment for this continued defense, Zeus also tricks Argos with lightning, transforming him into a monster. Lo also reveals that she was cursed with immortality after refusing to give in the Poseidon advances and he is watched over Perseus in his entire life, beginning with watching him from ashore as his adopted parents rescue him from the floating coffin, to present always protecting him, as he is prophesied to be the only one able to stand up to the god. As the cult of heads, led by the incense, grows in number and demands Meteor's sacrifice, a desperate ask Perseus to lead the king god to visit the Stygian witch in order to discover a way to kill the Kraken. Perseus, wishing to avenge the death of his family, accept. Perseus and the guards head off on their quest, joined by Autumn, monsters hunter, and heads in hopes of stopping Perseus. Finds Atticus, now known as Colabius, and grant him superhuman ability in exchange of Calibos, assuring Perseus will be die before he reaches the witches. Zeus is convinced by Apollo, who does not trust Hades, to give Perseus chance and present him with an enchanted sword forget on Mount Olympus and a winged horse named. Perseus refuses both gift but avoids Draco, puts his sword into the safekeeping. Shortly thereafter, they are attacked by Calibos. Perseus barely manages to hold him at bay and he is bitten by Calibos in a desperate movie. Draco saves Calibos' hand, causing Calibos to flee. The brand gives chase into the attacked by Scorpius, summed by Calibos' blood. Although they manage to kill some of them, they are ultimately surrounded by even large scorpions until they are saved by the engine. a band of Arabic desert, scorches led by Sheikh Solomon the Egyptian. Also wishing 40 guards defeat, lends aid to Perseus and his hand. The group arrive at Lair of the Stygian, which is and learns from that the only possibility for killing the Kraken is with the head of the god Gorgon Medusa, who is residing in a temple in the underworld. Medusa is able to turn any living creature into stone by making eye contact, and thus capturing her head, essential for battering the Kraken. As they prepare to head into the underworld, Perseus is approached by Apollo, who gives him a golden drop, which is fair for Charon, the ferryman of the underworld. Perseus, though Solomon, Draco, and his remaining men, and Ixax arrive at the underworld and demand enter Medusa's lair, while Ron remains outside. Unable to enter, Medusa kills Solon, who was shot and falls into the fire, and Ixax, who will turn into the stone, and won't be shot Draco. Solomon and Draco warn Medusa and turn to stone, making the ultimate sacrifice. The badly wounded Medusa is beheaded by Perseus, who takes her head. The rest of the body falls into the fire as he is leaving the temple. He witnesses Calibos creep up behind and Murderlo. Perseus and Calibos engage in mortal combat, with Calibos having the upper hand and disarming Perseus. Finally coming to terms with who is he. Perseus picks up the Olympian sword and pierces Calibon through the heart, turning him back into the Argos is human, from restoring him to sanity and humanity for one last month. After saying his goodbyes to the drawing show, eyes him forward to save Andromeda and Argos before she dissolves into an ethereal vapor. Perseus mounts and hastens back to Argos. In the meantime, Zeus has ordered to Kraken's release. The cult of heads in Argos invaded in place and says Andromeda to sacrifice her to the Kraken, while the Kraken reveals Argos. Hades reveals to Zeus that while they have been surviving on the people's adoration, he has been feeding on people's fear, and his monster has been channeling even more fear. While the gods have become weaker, Hades has been grown powerful enough to take on Mount Olympus, and even destroy it in revenge for his betrayal so many years before. Realizing his mistake too late, Zeus can only rely on Perseus. In Argos, Hades unleashes furious against Perseus, and they manage to snag away from him. Perhaps if the script had not been so lead heavy, with in-depth dialogue and ham-handed scenarios, lacking logic and a little more fun. Clash of the Titans might have been a great little adventure film. It's an empathy roller coaster of affect and half-cooked concept, badly scripted acting, and some ludicrous plot developments wrapped up in a typically gleaming Hollywood package, devoid of humor for the most part and lacking genuine excitement. This version of Clash of the Titan suffers from the excess Hollywood often falls full out. If I was you, would I accept escape it for a work in the original? It has been a couple of years since the last proper swords and sandals epic. It's hard to look past the glossy styles design of 300 and the discussion of racial politics which surrounded it. Troy and Alexander was hardly solid example of the genre, which had been at the height of its popularity more than half a century ago. Aside from Gladiator, it's a hard point to another big screen classical action movie that managed to do what it says on tin. Although it's a long way from perfect, Clash of the Titans at least delivers the intriguing visual and impressive action that one expects from the genre. I was pleasantly surprised. A remake of the cult sketch classic, the movie offers us a war between mankind and the gods. The mere mortals no longer fear the gods, which given them life. So the scheming Hades convinced his older brother Zeus to let him put some manners on the petulant children. Meanwhile, one of Zeus' many illegitimate children, Perseus witnessed the death of his adoptive parents in a scuffle with heads, so decided to mount a revenge attack on the gods, hoping to save the port city of Argos before Zeus gives the order to unleash the Kraken. What follows is your typical man on a mission story with homeotric tension, swords. What follows is your typical man on a mission story with homeotric tension, swords, bears, and scared to beat the band. As Perseus and his band of merry men cross ancient Greece trying to figure out how to kill the Kraken, the knowledge is difficult to come across, as it's a Scandinavian monster rather than a Greco Roman one. They encounter all manner of sinister and grotesque creation rendered far more effectively in CGI than the stop motion of the original. Sure, you are always conscious that you are not watching anything real, but there is enough skill in rendering the world that you don't mind. There are stone sculptures of an open palm, giant scorpions, and countless other macabre delight thrown in. Don't get me wrong, the movie is not particularly deep. It's very tried and predictable, especially the ending, which tries a Perseus' quest for veganance in neat little blow. There are some really strange twists, like literally every woman in the cast throwing themselves at Perseus in the last 5 minutes, and some really odd help from a character whose motivations are pretty sketchy for a guy in such an important role. I am not spoiling anything, but there is even Deus ex machina thrown in literally. I suppose that comes with the material. Still, the movie hits most of the check boxes for a film of this type, even if it's only doing it in a working woman like fashion. There is an effective declaration of harvest by the human, which is the almost mandatory in Greek plays so as to invoke the smithing from above, and with their scenery and monster choices. In fact, the film progresses much like a video game, with the traveling troop battling their way across the land, losing life as they do, moving from one boss to bigger one. However, if you accept for what it is, it's fun. The truth is that director Lois Leterrier delivers this very standard movie in a more than adequate fashion. Sure, there are some interesting choices thrown in. The way that is scene filmed at Olympus look like someone smeared Vaseline all over the camera, but it is mostly well put together. Leterrier knows how to film an action scene, and that carries a large amount of the movie over the line. There is also a fair amount of camp carried over seriously. Check out the original, but Leterrier handles it well. Even the inevitable mechanical old cameo is not as terrible as I might have feared originally. The casting is a mixed bag. I just don't see anything special about Sam Worthington, despite the fact he seems to be literally everywhere. He just does not radiate screen presence for me. And I am sorry, but Gemma Arterton should not be let anywhere near a film like this. She sounds like a sophisticated modern British woman rather than a mystic prophet. I half expect her to go on about the office gossip. In a way, she does, providing exposition for the group. Still, it's fun to see Mares Michelson in a strong supporting role, and I enjoy seeing Liam Neeson and Ralph Fiennes compete and scenery chewing. By the way, was it just me or was that a teeny part for Danny Huston? By the way, was it just me or was it about Liam loud trailer spoiled the whole Unleash the Kraken fight as in short exactly what the creature's face looked like? I mean, I am all up for teasing, but show a couple of tentacles to whet your audience's appetite, like in the image above. Revealing the whole creature from the film's climax seemed a little bit tricky. Still, I was pleasantly surprised. It was not perfect. I am not even convinced it was very good. But I was solidly entertained and engaged for the runtime, rolling with the dumb fun aspect for the film, which is really more than enough, is not it? The gods of classical mythology have always been selfish and capricious, but in a tempestuous, grand, passionate style, sort of like dollars in heaven. In the new Clash of the Titan, had the gods are about as grand and passionate as the same person, and not a tenth as interesting. The original 1981 Clash of the Titans gave us Zeus, portrayed by Laurence Olivier, with a sort of desolate patrician dignity. As played by Liam Neeson in the remake, he is merely grumpy and vacillating. The gods of classical mythology have always been selfish and capricious, but in a tempestuous, grand, passionate style, sort of like the lost in heaven. In the new Clash of the Titan, the gods are about as grand and passionate as a simple sun and not a trend as interesting. The original 1981's Clash of the Titans gave us Zeus portrayed by Laurence Olivier with a sort of desolate patrician's dignity, as played by Liam Neeson in the remake. He is merely grumpy and vacillating. No wonder he is half human. Son Perseus, Sam, keep telling anyone who will listen that he is man, not a god. Clash of Titans takes the secularizing bent of the 2004 film Troy a step further. Troy retold one of the best known Greek myths as a purely human story, leaving out the gods. Clash of Titans goes further. The gods are not just ignored, they are all about dethroned. Over and over, from the opening voiceover onward, we are told how the gods, specifically Zeus, made mankind selfishly to bask in any draw strength from their prayer and adoration. The men continually tell one another that this arrangement benefits the gods much more than it does the human, and it's high time for man to rebel against the gods, throw off the yoke of servitude, and take their fate into their own hands. The gods, meanwhile, warn one another that the human rebellion must be suppressed before it gets out of hand. Man must be punished and reminded of their place. Hades, working hard to make his balding god of underworld as different as possible from his signature baldy from hell. Watchmore plays Zeus like a lair, pursuing him that releasing their Kraken on the Jupiter, citizen of Argos, who are white holding prayer and worship like an unwelcome Texas, is good way to get the love flowing heavenward again. Switching up Fion's and Neeson's might have been an interesting move. In reality, Hades' goal is not man's love, but their fear, which fears him as devotion sustains Zeus. Releasing the Kraken is a gambit to strengthen Hades against Zeus, enabling him to escape the underworld and seize Olympus for his own. The Kraken appears courtesy. If the defeat of the Kraken is taken separate from the original Clash, at least both versions of Clash realizes that defeating the Kraken is an important event that ought to be in the actual movie Gore Verbinski. One of the new Black Clash Wallace move is sidelining the Kraken's designated victim, the Princess Andromeda, who is no longer Perseus' companion and love interest. In the original Clash, Perseus' mission was both a heroic quest and a romantic one. He was out to save the woman he loved. This time, our Perseus' female companion is a woman named Lou, played by Gemma Arterton. The original film had a Bond girl too, Ursula Andress as Aphrodite, but the movie knew she was out of Perseus' league. Alternate demigod is cursed with immortality for supplanting the advances of a god. Medusa also supplanted the advances of a god and wound up being violated, turned into a cross between Gerandol and his mother from 2007 Beowulf. and exiled to the realm of death. Some girls play hard to get and become immortal bodies, hotties who covered with Sam Warrington. Go figure. Immortality seems to work differently here than in Greek mythology, since, spoiler alert, it turns out that Lo can be killed. For example, Perseus could kill Medusa since she was mortal, but her Gorgon sister said no and were not and could not be killed. This is usually terrible, convenient in Greek mythology, being killed. I mean, not being immortal, since rescue missions to the underworld are horribly difficult and almost always unsuccessful. But it's amazing what can accomplish if the screenwriter just put their minds to it. Incidentally, is immortality ever considered a curse in Greek mythology? Being immortalist, too has been around the block a few times, and he's picked some mad combat skill, like Perseus, whose human family is killed by Hades early in the film. She has a grudge against the gods, so takes on the Burgess role from the original Clash, or perhaps the original Rocky, both goading and guiding Perseus on a quest to defeat the Kraken, which she tells him will weaken Hades and enable Perseus to take him down. That's right. Perseus' motivation is not to save the city, or even the motivation is not to save the city, or even the girl. It's revenge. Again, like Troy, Gladiator, and Braveheart. Code combat training session being what they are. Sooner or later, someone always wind up on top. Here's Perseus, whose inner demigod tends to kick in the after he's been knocked on his behind a few times, feeling the force of his. Patience Lou murmurs, calm your storm. I wish I could say it's the worst line in the film. Well, perhaps it is. Stutteringly, despite all the storm and drang about rebellions against the god, the movie ends on a curiously status one quote. Zeus is in his heaven, Hades in his hell, and all right with the wild Perseus moment of revenge against Hades is oddly understand afterthought to the defeat of the Kraken. It's like the filmmakers lost track of what motivated their hero. The original Clash of the Titans marked the end of era, highlighted by the Harry Hasson stop-motion creature effect what had graced the likes of the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad and Jason and the Argonauts. The 1981 epic was a throwback to their earlier breed of film, and but for a few bites of classical nudity, could easily have been made a decade or two earlier. The remake is violent, joyless, humorless, and unimaginable. In his last big 3D epic, Worthington rejected his humanity and embarrassed Alderness, big blue alien Alderness. It was not that tough a decision, since mankind in that film was pretty ugly and unlikable. In Clash, Warrington rejects Olympian otherness and embarrasses humanity. But humanity is not much more attractive or appealing here. The Navy in Avatar got a benevolent nature, goddess. Perhaps in the movie everyone gets the gods the other deserve. Titans clashed. I only mildly cared. The original Clash of the Titans was no Star Wars, and this new one is no Avatar. This new revamping of Clash of Titan is inward, loud. At times, the screen is cultured with special effect as the soundtrack blares all the noise, staring Sam Worthington, knows to most of the world as Jackie Sully. This is the story of Perseus, the illegitimate son of a woman and a god. He must travel through the underworld to defeat Medusa, and in turn defeat the Kraken that has been released upon the city. The shaky cam special effect would be designed and desolating whether you see in 2D or 3D, but are particularly nauseating when also have to calm your nerves in a medium root beer. Ray Harry Hasson's special effect may be dated, but at least he could hold it on camera straight. I admired the brilliant old school effect of Harry Hassan, but in 1981 they did not quite cut it. The original Clash of the Titan does not really hold up and was not even a great movie by 81 standard, mainly because it was unbearably slow paced, with long stretches of cheesy dialogue. But it has got a fan base, and I respect that. Hey, even I love the cameo by the mechanical owl, Boo Boo, seen 25 minutes into the new one. I admire the lavish production, design, and good intention of the filmmakers to give people a good time. So, from that standpoint, this is not a bad movie. It's actually a pretty good one. For instance, so film everything so shaky and close up you can't even tell what's going on. It's not a good choice and the biggest downfall of the film. If you want to see a 3D blockbuster that's actually exciting, incredibly entertaining and surprisingly moving, then go see How to Train Your Dragon, the best movie I have seen so far this year, and then all around, hands down great movie. If you don't mind leaving the theater with a Transformer 2 headache and a 3D CG hangover, then by all means go see Clash or Titan. Who know the teenage boy or mythology Greek aside from you might actually like it. Overall, it provides a sportically entertaining and fun, but very overwhelming and loud term at the movies. But I just can't really recommend something that left me with a headache. Like in the original film, Perseus, demigod, son of Zeus, is fighting against the Greek gods and must find a way to defeat a pesky Kraken. The Kraken looks better here. Although, I still did not really feel much more tension for the characters than in the 1981 version. Compared to the original Clash of the Titan, this is certainly an amped up version in terms of special effect, but the utilization of those effects compared to other action movies is nothing special. Medusa is quite cool in her movement laugh. One thing in particular I found about his version, especially in AMC 80X Auditorium, but its larger theater screen and in enhanced sound, was that it was overwhelming in that term. The action scene were cut mostly in close-up shot rather than wide or even medium, making it harder to follow along and watch what was happening. And the sound of hissing, screaming creatures, and swords clanking was so loud at times that I could feel the vibrations in my seat and could not help but block my ear to muffle the sound to a more reasonable level. But for a big, loud, and not very story driven action movie, Caught is fun enough. It kept me entertained and was too long at 106 minutes. In terms of original version, the story is changed in part here. Also, fans will still see the parallels between the two. Also, watch for a cameo from the old mechanical owl, which was fun to see. In short, if you like the first one or like the trailers for this one, checking this out in theater would be the way to do it. It is an action set pieces that certainly won't hold up the same way on a small screen out of 3D. Don't get me wrong, the film was enjoyable in a big loud theater for what it was. A remake of a hilariously cheesy 1991 film, the 2010 version is fun and a lot louder and faster paced. Based on Greek mythology, Clash of the Titans tells a classic story of good visual evil. When Perseus Sam Worthington realizes he is a demigod, he must defeat Hades, god of the underworld, before he takes power away from Zeus, Neeson, the divine father of Perseus. While the film is too loud at times and a little hard to follow, Clash of the Titan will appeal to the 12-year-old boy market. The creatures, in particular the Pegasus and Medusa, are really cool. This remake differs somewhat from the original, not only because of better special effect, but also some characters have been changed. This remake has been also given more Christians undertone, which I liked. I also enjoyed a cameo from Bubu, the mechanical old puppet from the original. If you want an action movie that is fun, but not too intelligently stimulating, then go see Clash of the Titan. This new 2010 Clash of the Titan as a fresh year, louder 3D remake of the original 1981 campy version. Based on Greek mythology, the story is still basically the same. A power struggle is emerging between people on Earth and the heavenly gods, led by Zeus, Neeson, and Hades, king of the underworld. Zeus' demigod son Perseus Sam is captured by soldiers after his family is killed by Hades. Perseus is recruited to help battle the gods and save mankind. There are a lot of interesting and scary creatures in this movie. The special effect and makeup very well overdone. The camera and action was moving so fast at times that everything looked like a blur and somewhat fake. So many scenes were lit up by lightning flashes that I am glad I am not prone to seizure. The sound was also at times overwhelmingly loud. The filmmakers did make good use for 3D for a nice sense of depth in the forest, mountains, valleys, and desert scene. They could have done better with the Pegasus flying scene, however. Recent movies such as Avatar and How to Train Your Dragon are example of how to 3D flying sequences are right. A few days ago in a new Blu-ray disc I watched the 1981 version of Clash of the Titans for the first time to prepare for the 3D remakes released this week. Despite recent advances from industrial light and magic and other seen in films like Star Wars, the 1981 films went back to Ray Harry Hassan for its rock and shock and special effect, which along with still title dialogue from Burgess Meredith and an a list of classical British actors kept fooling me into thinking it was a last film from 1950, which as a bonus gave some an untold laugh. At least Chord 2010 is louder, and the 3D thought only tracked on After Effects, except with only a couple of glitches cancelled out by the string scene on the flying mechanical all of Chord 91. Also appearing in the new version in one of its rare is intentional humor. Unfortunately, director Louis Leterrier has not used 21st century visual technology to best effect in the large battle scene. Light editing and very busy screen shot with shaky cam leave everything in a blur reminiscent of Transformers 2. For example, the flying attack creatures move so fast that I felt myself wondering whether they resembled the flying monkeys of that Wizard of Oz without feeling any of the terror that the original inspired. I must admit that Harry Hassan's already anchoristic creation in God actually worked better here, with a possible exception of the Medusa which God 2010 handled quite well. Other changes in the script made it even more confusing than the 1981 version that had already strayed from its Greek source. Todd God 1981 could be criticized for its slow pace. The scene on Mount Olympus with its clay action figure and Heberger's married character on Earth at least explained the plot more clearly than their counterparts in Coty 2010. Overall, there is not much to say between the two versions. If you like fair action movies, both are worth seeing once. But if you want to see something good, go to How to Train Your Dragon, which is better than the both put together. I admire that the lavish production design and good intentions of the filmmakers to give people a good time. So from that standpoint, this is not a bad movie. It's actually a pretty good one. But the instance is to film everything so shaky and close up that you can't even tell what's going on. It's not a good choice and the biggest downfall of the film. If you want to see a 3D blockbuster that's actually exciting, incredibly entertaining and surprisingly moving. Then go see How to Train Your Dragon, the best movie I have seen so far this year, and an all around, hands down great movie. If you don't mind leaving the theater with a transformed Joe, headache and a 3D CG hangover, then by all means go see Clash of Titan. Who knows the teenage boy or mythology Greek inside of you might actually like it. Overall, it provides a entertaining and fun, but very overwhelming and low time Eddie movies. But I just can't really recommend something that left me with a headache. Like in the original film, Perseus, demigod son of Zeus, is fighting against his Greek gods and must find a way to defeat that speaking Kraken. The Kraken looks better here. Although, I still did not really feel much more tension for the characters than in the 1981 version. Compared to the original Clash of the Titan, this is certainly an amped up version in terms of special effect, but a utilization of those effects compared to other action movies is nothing special. Medusa is quite cool in her movements too. One thing in particular I found about this version, especially in AMC ETX auditorium with its larger theater screen and in enhanced sound, was that it was overwhelming at times. But for a big, loud, and not very story driven action movie, COT is fun enough. It kept me entertained and was not too long at 106 minutes. In terms of the original version, the story is changed in part here. Although fans will still see the parallels between the two, also watch for a cameo from the old mechanical old which was the original Clash of Titans is a movie I have very fond memories of from when I was a kid. I remember enjoying Medusa and all the other elements of Greek and Roman mythology, and I used to eat that stuff up when I was younger. And since the original was majority successful, and Hollywood has run out of new ideas and remake was inevitable, I have got nothing against remakes in general, so I gave this the benefit of the doubt and hoped that the creators could deliver a fun action film with some fantastic beast. Having seen the original film, I think it is unfair to compare the film it to, because if I did, I would really dislike this one. The new film stays close to the original story, but then tries to add elements that end up adding nothing. So, if I look at as a completely new franchise, does it hold up any better? Sadly, it does not, as this turned out to be just another mediocre action film that is about as faithful to Greek mythology as the mummy films are to Egyptian mythology, and lacks the fun that made the original so enjoyable. You may or may not be familiar with the story of Perseus, some demigod son of Zeus, all around Greek and us. In this telling of the story, Perseus is raised by a fisherman and grows up in peace until his family is killed by Hades. Perseus swears revenge against Hades and is still kind of pissed off of Zeus of being a deadbeat dad, and is just angry at the world in general until he is given a scared quest that will allow him to exact revenge against the gods. The story stays close to the original, but also goes in different directions. Without giving too much away, there is a different romantic situation presented, a whole crew added to assist Perseus in his quest, and a bunch of other changes that fans of the original may not enjoy. If the changes had made for a more exciting or interesting film, I could understand them, but they don't add anything that make you care about the characters any more than the original story. And that's the biggest problem with the film. An almost complete lack of interesting character or anyone that the audiences can get behind when watching this film. I never found myself rooting for Perseus to overcome the difficulties before him. I did not care when any of his comrades sacrificed themselves, and I just could not care less what happened to these people. The movie was flat because of stiff acting from Worthington and just a lot of original dialogue. After seeing the film, I thought about films like Predator or King Archer or the 13 Warrior and saw how much better they introduce a group of fighters that the audience cares about. Those films introduced characters in a few lines, and the actors brought life to the characters, while the new Clash of the Titans tries to best to give characters something interesting to do, but they feel tired and disposable. Another issue to bring up is a reduction of time spent with the gods. Liam Neeson and Ralph Fiennes are the best actor in the film, and the role of the god has been greatly reduced in the favor of focusing on Perseus. Band, in fact, had Zeus, Poseidon, and the Apollo may be the only god given names, and Apollo and the Poseidon have two lines between them. The creator play fast and loose with the actual mythology the story is supposedly based on, but never make them more appealing. They strip the film of one of the elements that made the original film so memorable. Having seen some early reviews of the film, including advice from fellow Greek of Doom, Vector, I decided to see the 2D version of the film. I can't say which version is necessarily better, but I was perfectly fine with the 2D version. One thing that is an improvement over the original is the look of the film, particularly the sets and Greek tones. CGI has allowed the characters to give the film a bigger scale, and they have also tried to stay more realistic about the clothing and weapons of the Greek. So everything has a more impressive look to it, and while the CG creatures have a more modern look to them, they don't look or interact with the actors much better than the original stop motion models. The Medusa especially looks more like a cartoon than an actual mythological beast, and since that is the one of the main scene in the entire film, it ends up hurting the whole picture. If CGI is going to be used these days to create monsters, there is no excuse for the monsters to look as bad as they do here. Sure, the Kraken ends up looking okay, but everything else is very mediocre. And mediocre is the best way to describe the film. There is nothing patiently bad about it, outside of a new plot and controversies, but it just failed to make an impact on me in any way. There is a few good action scenes, but it and not anky actors to hold the plot. They play it with the seriousness that the films never earns. What are they left with is an action movie that was done better 30 years ago. I give this one to 7 Medusa heads out of 5 high to ground. Clash of the Titans is a remake of the 1981 cult classic of the same name. The original with stop motion animation effect by Legend Ray earned its status because of Harryhausen work on the film, and it was ripe for remaking because of dated quality, the human nature of star Harry Hamlin, and the orogenic quality of the production. The creation of effects, however, demand your attention, particularly the unforgettable deception of the snake-headed Medusa. That movie now how to incorporate fun into an adventure. It's a movie that any youths, including myself, grew up loving. But now, looking back as an adult, the adventure is rather cheesy, dated, and even insufferable to sit through. The same can be said for a remake. But before getting into the meat of this movie, let me first make a confession to you, the reader. Warner Bros. Has released Clash of the Titan in both standard and 3D format, and I did not see this film in 3D. In truth, whenever there are press screenings that plan to show a movie in 3D, I avoid them like the plague and instead see the movie on opening day in a standard presentation. This is because, in my experience, the 3D gimmicks adds nothing to do respective movie and in many cases takes away from the screen to story. It's a personal choice on my part, but I also recommend that you movieger avoid 3D in this case specifically. The filmmakers completed shooting and then added a Fox third dimension after the fact, making the effect lackluster and not true 3D. And third, I cannot speak for quality of the 3D in Clash of the Titans firsthand. I can say that the majority of critics have all but exclusively censored their reviews. That said, director Lewis Helmer of his incredible Hook and Transporter 2 has made a movie empty of emotions that audiences can relate to. Characters' motivations never extend beyond anger and revenge and spite. This temper tantrum of a movie follows Perseus Sam Worthington on a perilous quest to slay the Olympian gods because they killed his mother and adoptive family. To complete this task, Perseus joins forces with a legion from the city of Argos, which will be destroyed by the heads by Arter from Zeus for their lack of faith in the gods. Hades gives Apros an ultimatum: sacrifice Perseus and Hermosa to the Kraken, or the monstrous elemental beast will destroy all of Argos. So Perseus sets out to discover a way to defeat the Kraken and therein get revenge on the gods of killing his family. Curiously, he is not so worried about saving Andromeda. Unlike the original Greek myth, Perseus' quest is not motivated by his love of Andromeda. Instead, Perseus has daddy issue that can only be resolved by defying the gods and proving that humans are capable of anything. Of course, Perseus is not quite human. He is a demigod fathered by Zeus, which quickly explains why. After being a fisherman all his life, he is able to wield a sword like a pro after only one obligatory training session. His hastily found skills come in handy and impress his skeptical. Warrior cohorts from Argos when they battle giant scorpions, Borgman, Stygian witches, Harpies, Medusa, and finally the Kraken. His quest is understandable. The Greek god make it easy to believe that life is unfair and the world is an awful place, whereas the Christian's god makes life perplexing for those who believe in it. After all, Christians believe their God loves everyone. So when bad things happen, it's confusing as to why God would allow them to occur. Hence the saying, "The Lord works in mysterious ways." The Greek had a better view. They saw their gods in more human terms. Every god on Mount Olympus was capable of being selfish or evil, vengeful or cowardly, shameful or brave. Human behavior makes sense when you compare it to Greek gods, whose leader Zeus spends the majority of his time suffering mortals in animal form. Moreover, it's easier to deem the gods cruel when they are so humanized and therefore fallible, making things on earth easier to explain when considering who's in charge. But don't expect any commentary in the movie about gods and whether or not they should be worshipped. The story is used merely as a setting to employ capturized special effects and spent a lot of money doing so. The movie seeks to be an action picture, nothing more. Leterier shoots on an epic scale with a surprising lack of clarity. The fights are captured with a shaky cam and overrated, and the result is usually inseparable. Winged harps appear in one scene, but I could not tell you what it looked like. The editing and camera work did not stay still long enough to catch even a glimpse. What's more, the creatures are made with a cheap-looking CGI, most notably Medusa, who thankfully is not played by Uma Thurman. See or rather they don't see. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the lightning thief. There should have been a real actress behind Medusa face, someone to evoke. But the lackluster effects could have been forgiven if only the story was there. And it was not. Consider the original myth, in which Perseus is angered by the gods because they put his true love, Andromeda, on the serving platter for the Kraken. Now there's a battle that will involve an audience. What better? Universal drive is there than love. And how often do you see an epic blockbuster where there is not a hero recusing his lady Andromeda on the serving platter of the Kraken? Now there's a battle that will involve an audience. What better? Universal drive is there and then love. And how often do you see an epic blockbuster where there is not a hero recusing his lady in some form or another? This movie proceeds on the sole motivation of revenge, of which the stakes are hardly implanted. Here Perseus is made to fall for his cold, overseeing guardian angel of sort. But that's development only dragged on in the end, as if the filmmakers said, whoops, we forget to include a love interest. Let's have Perseus fall for no sense. It requires the least amount of reshot. It's a plot development that comes so late in the movie, and by that time it hardly matters. Aside from its involving plot, the production feels uninspired. Notice the pseudo rock meets classical epic score by Ramin, in which impact blows on various shears are synchronized with notes in the music to achieve the effect. Why any of the powers that be making his movie thought look escape music if it with Greek? Mythological fantasy is beyond comprehension. The decision almost recalls the electronic metal score by Paul Hellisinger that Universal scrapped for the whole film. There are positive aspects of the production, namely of everything that occurs on Mount Olympus. The art design of the scene is wonderful. From their lens flare, legend visual to their otherworldly atmosphere. This set looks like somewhere gods would be. Liam Neeson's clad in shimmery armor plays Zeus, who is perhaps the only interesting character in the movie besides Hairs. Hair played by Finer in full world mode. Their scene together carry more weight and tension than any of the silly battle constants. As is evident that these are actors who know how to act through their long wigs and busy fake beard. On the flip side, however, Worthington is as straight as can be. He does not bother trying to hide his Australian accent at all, and he is seemingly incapable of showing any emotion beyond anger despite the success of Avatar, the credit for which belongs to James Cameron and not Star. After both Clash of the Titans and Terminator, Salvation Dissector is a risk of becoming another bland hunk, like Gerard Butler. This tend to never give a genuine performance. If only Hollywood cared that bankable does not mean talented. Bankable also does not necessarily indicate excellent. For how much money was spent on the production, they might have included at least the faintest plot or character development to engage us. The movie plays like a procession of unintelligible action scenes strung together by the thinnest narrative thread. Regardless, Clash of the Titans will now do make a lot of money opening on Easter weekend when audiences will enjoy the caprices of humanity, rebelling against the gods, especially with all the church sex abuses scandals in the headlines as of late. And for audiences in the mood to blow more cash on mindlessly, zoning out to popcorn munching action, this movie will probably serve them well. What it won't do is linger in your memory after leaving the theater. For a Hollywood spectacle that should have wowed audiences with its grandiose exhibition, Clash of the Titans not only does not live up to its expectations, it underwhelms to a surprising degree of mediocrity. Clash of Titans was meant for 3D, despite this shoddy addition late in the film's life. Why else would the film spend so much time with Zeus in eagle form, spilling into the god's temple from above? Why else would the coin used to bribe the ferryman on the river Styx shameless skip across the water resulting in painfully obvious computer generated splash? Everything seems wrong with this remake update, pandering to the lowest common denominator who must have excessive realism in their film, and any ounce of fantasy seems purely out of the realm of acceptability. The simply awful score by Ramin Djawadi is just one element that ignores the mythological aspect, gunning for a harder edge to match the nauseating and impossible to follow action of the giant scorpion fight. Musically, the film lacks any majesty, qualities, or sense of scale. Everything fights in this movie, whether it makes sense or not, Calibos. Here with some admittedly impressive mix-up fight Perseus, twist the second the only time the battle means anything. The three blind witches are added into the script for another scene, as if blind witches with a single eye are any threat. A fight with the newcomer, race decision is utterly pointless an attempt to show uneasiness among us Perseus crew, but not just make you shake your head and wonder why any of this is necessary. Clash is overdone and bloated. The hilarious Kraken release among us the most painful. Zeus sends all of other gods away except for heads. Walk up small, set up straight and below. Release the Kraken. Why did he summon the other gods away? Why did he need to walk up the step? It looked good in the trailer. Side characters, including all of those traveling with Perseus, are practically underdeveloped fighter for the various mythological creation. Intelligence is not a strong suit either. One of the nameless journeymen actually asking a scorpion to wait before it snatches him with its claw. The scorpion probably does not respond well to negotiation. The film is too fast, too bold, and too exaggerated to be any fun. It's hard and eggy, ugly without a purpose. All of the millions tossed on screen are worthless when the creations have no heart. They are mindless and too flea-footed to be terrifying. Medusa does not stick anymore. She slitters at a ridiculous speed to engage in a friend-side chase because it keeps the camera moving. And why is it the black shade now? Was everyone involved so devoid of creativity that changing a pure white flying horse to resemble something from Head's dark confess of underworld the only thing they could come up with? Clash is even disrespectful, tossing aside the metallic all boo from the original with the line, just leave it. It's as if no one had any respect for what came before. Bobo's legitimate annoyance or not treated as one of joke. It remains a Ray Harryhausen creation, and to toss it aside is committed film. Bless me. I made plan to see Clash of the Titan with friends on Friday night. I got here and it on the way to the theater. My friends called this accident a gift from the gods that spared me from the horrors of this remake. One of my friends needed an hour of post-movie therapy in the theater lobby after it was over, but it finally was it. When I first wrote this review, it was scathing. I would written Clash of the Titans of as one of the worst I have ever seen. Having slept on it, I think my deep dislike for the movie stems from nostalgia and affection for the original. I tried to look at it again objectively. If I would never seen the 1981 classic and did not know anything about Greek mythology, would I enjoy Lois Interior's new version? I would love to be able to put those two factors aside, but I won't because there is a risk the filmmakers took. This could have been a great movie, but is not. This film maintains only the most superficial resemblance to the original. That is, Artemis, son of Zeus named Perseus, is enlisted to save the city of Argos and its princess Andromeda from destruction. With the aid of some diving weapons and the winged horse, he kills Medusa and uses her head to defeat the Kraken. Everything else is different. Sam Worthington's Perseus is a false cry for the sweet and naive image Harry Hamlin gave us in 1981. In this version, there is no romance between him and Andromeda. He is paired up with Lo instead, a character that does not appear in the meat of the original film. Here she steps into the role of Perseus' god, replacing the cat-loving player with Ammon. The lovable old boo only gets about 15 seconds of screen time. The sea god Thetis, originally played by a Smith, is not in this film. Therefore, Calibos has been changed from her son and Andromeda's husband to be into the husband of Perseus' own mother. In this reboot, Calibos has been transferred by Zeus as punishment for tossing Danae and baby Perseus into a coffin and dumping them into the sea to die. Calibos is irrelevant in this reboot. We see next to nothing of any gods other than Zeus and Hades, who's not in the original either. The characterization of the two divine brothers is Andreas, filtered through the Christian's lens of good and evil. Zeus is depicted as a bright, loving father who draws power from humankind's devotion. Hades is a dark, evil demon who draws powers from fear. The new Clash of the Titans does not just remove many of original's classic and most beloved elements. It makes some notable additions, such as Inhuman, desert sorcerers that have an uncanny resemblance to Tuscan Raider. They are called Digins in the movie, as if that makes more sense. And finally, I did not like the look of the film. The costumes, the hair and beard style, the places and so forth. With everything we know about the ancient world and following movies like Gladiator and Troy and shows the like HBO's Rome. There is just no excuse to make a movie about the classical world look so shoddy. The special effects are good and Medusa was cool, but it does not offer enough visual thrill so to offset the definitions of the script. It's really a shame to waste the talent of such fine actors such as Liam Neeson, Ralph Francis and Polly Walker. It's a great shame to waste your heart and money on the film. I agree. I was excited for this film. With movies and shows like Troy, Gladiator, and Rome, I really thought we were moving toward a better and an actually pagan's depiction of the ancient world. I feel Clash of the Titan is a step back and was very disappointed. Thanks for commenting, Wolf. Seriously, I could not agree more. And I had this revelation in the theaters realizing, hi, wait a minute. They are turning this into a God Devil Jesus story. What BS? The witches need to reclaim our story, reclaim our power. These movies need to stop being made by men who know nothing of the God this is. My notes on Clash of the Titans, strangely, this actually is a remake of Clash of the Titans 1981. Strangely because few added time taught much of the original. Our final work from the team of producers carries H. Scener and animator Harry Hosson, which tried to compete with the Lucas type film that we are supplanting the like of Jason's and the box office, witnessed the horrible, like mechanical, and came across as a rehash of past glories. Given that the story is entirely valid, it would have seemed simple to come up with a fresh take on Perseus and Medusa, as Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief did a few months ago, rather than remake a hash of script which tipped giant scorpion and the Norse Kraken into Greek mythology for no real purpose. Even the title, which 1982 critics felt made it all sound like a Steve Reeves movie, has not got enough resonance to be worth-seeking on a film which features clashes aplenty but barely acknowledges the titans. That said, this effect-driven spectacle from Louis Leterrier, the incredible hook is entertaining enough as shock and offers an impressive parade of monsters, giant scorpion, that spring from the spilling blood of Calibos. Same Worthington, who is becoming a fixture in big fantasy film, without really developing much of a character. It's a musical Perseus with demigod superpower that go against like training as a fisherman with MA and PA can't, like foster parents who get creamed quickly after importing human value. MC governs 25 years ago. You would never have seen them coming as a screen couple who resists the guilty gadget's super sword pushed on him by deadbeat Dad Zeus. Andromeda Alexa, a socially conscious princess, is a plot token, which means that Gemma Arterton gets to be the leading lady as Lou, an immortal who rarely gets to fulfill the plot function of the bloody clockwork. The idea behind the public movie Defender is to take up the scars of a particular movie that I believe is better than the majority of reviews it has received. There are movies which I feel are worth either a second look or at least a more open examination, considering the predominantly negative opinion of them. The film choices are ones that I like, so therefore, I am taking their case and defending them before the court of negative opinion. Let the trial begin. When I first came up with the idea of this one, little thing called the public movie defender, that were several movies that immediately came to mind from inclusion. Some are personal favorite that I am deeply passionate about, and others are simply movies that I feel are good, yet that good pointed a bit unfairly. Some are not that difficult to defend while others are a really hard sell. 2010's remake of Clash of the Titans is one of those hard sell, and while I would not categorize it as a personal favorite, I do think it's a good movie that does not deserve the level of disdain it has received. Clash of Titans had its works cut out for it. It's a remake of cult classic from 1981 that featured a wonderful fantasy adventure as well as his final work of stop motion special effect masters Ray Harryhausen. This time, advanced makeup and the tone of CGI would serve to bring the world to life, and that is itself was quite a task. While my deep affection of Harry Hassan's brilliance trumps the new computer effect, the Clash of the Titans features some fantastic effect that easily overshadow the few visual hiccup that we get. And then there is the story. There were two different approaches that the remake could have taken. The film could have taken a greater and more serious look at the material, or it could enjoy and capture many of the nostalgic elements of the original. By that, I mean the over the top language, the massive chase, the classic fantasy movie plot dynamics. The filmmakers made a deliberate choice to modernize the story a bit, but also tip their hat and incorporate a lot of this late 1970s, the 1980s approaches to fantasy storytelling. I think this is what alienated some people. I think this clashed with people's familiarity with modern filmmaking and current cinematic storytelling that we get today. Personally, I ate it up. The settled and under cheesy dialogue, along with several old school plot mechanics, brought back memories of the Sinbad films, Ice Pirates, Conan, and Ghoul. These are films that I grew up watching and clearly see how the movie uses and embarrasses them. The great actors Liam Neeson and Rolf Fiennes, him it is up Zeus and hairs. Are they cheesy? Yes, more so than a pizza. But they are supposed to be. I completely understand if that does not work for some people, but I don't see it is as a deep flaw in the movie itself. I responded to it with a nostalgic smile and appreciation. No, it's not like everything in a movie imitated the original. Arterton Sean from Worthington replaces a mop-headed Harry Hamlin as Perseus. Some have an issue with Worthington's character and performance. Not me. I like this greater and more soulman turn. Considering all that his character faces, I can understand him being a bit angry and coarse. I think Worthington being sad and physically to the role that I welcomed, and to that an interesting and full supporting cast of traditional survival fantasy character. Again a tip out it head to the those old school flick. None are better than the great Mace Mickelson as the gruff and tough Draco, captain of the King's Guard. The movie features the classic fantasy tale, a quest in place which takes Perseus and crew on who will survive adventure. Along the way, they face a threat such as witches, Medusa and Falcor's giant scorpion. And what a scene it is when the giant scorpions appear. Incredible visual and a beautifully filmed sequences. And then there is the Kraken. There's perhaps nothing in this film ridiculed more than Liam Neeson's command to release the Kraken. And while I would not call it the equivalent of Great Thespian's operation, it's not that bad of line. Sure, it's absolutely cheese, but the mockery was really fueled by the line used in the trailer and TV spot. The Kraken itself looked cool, and Nielsen's overjaw top in leasing fits in perfectly. I believe that your opinion of this film will be dictated by expectations and preferences. It's about recognizing what the filmmakers are doing and the type of movie they are making. I think they set a cool, nostalgic target and hit it dead center. Now, to be clear, I am not saying this is a perfect film, but I really like what they did. It took me right back to those movies that I would lay in the floor and watch on Saturday afternoon. That made this is a fun and entertaining experience, and when considering the film in that light, I see it is a success. The idea behind the public movie Defender is to take up the cast of a particular movie that I believe is better than the majority of reviews it has received. These are movies which I feel are worth either a second look or at least a more open examination, considering the predominantly negative opinion of them. The film chosen are ones that I like, so therefore I am taking their case and defending them before the court of negative opinion. Let the trial begin. When I first came up with the idea of this fun little thing called the Public Movie Defender, were several movies that immediately came to mind for inclusion. Some are personal favorite that I am deeply passionate about, and others are simply movies that I feel are good yet that good pounded a bit unfairly. Some are not that difficult to defend, while others are really hard sell. 2010's remake of Clash of the Titan is one of those are hard sell. Clash of Titans had its work cut out for it. Its remake of a cult classic from 1981 that featured a wonderful fantasy adventure as well as the final work for stop motion special effect master Ray Harry Hassan. This time, advanced makeup and a ton of CGI would serve to bring the world to life, and that in itself was quite a task. While my deep affection for Harry Hassan's brilliance trumps the cube computer effect, this Clash of the Titans features some fantastic effect that easily overshadow the few visual hiccups that we get. And then there is the story. There were two different approaches that the remake could have taken. The film could have taken a greater and more serious look at the material, or it could try and capture many of the nostalgic elements of the original. By that I mean the over-the-top language, the massive chase, the classic fantasy movie plot dynamics. The filmmakers made a deliberate choice to modernize the story a bit, but also tip their net and incorporate a lot of these late 1980s approaches to fantasy storytelling. I think this is what alienated some people. I think this clashed with people's familiarity with modern filmmaking and current cinematic storytelling that we get today. Personally, I ate it up. The stilled and over cheesy dialogue, along with several old school plot mechanics, brought back memories of the Sunbad film. I Spirits, Canon, and Cool. These are films that I grew up watching. I think this is what alienated some people. I think this clash with people's familiarity with modern filmmaking and current cinematic storytelling that we get today. Personally, I ate it up. The stilled and over cheesy dialogue, along with Sarah old school plot mechanics, brought back memories of the Sunbad films, I Spirits, Canon, and Cool. These are films that I grew up watching and clearly see how the movies uses the embarrasses them. The great actors Liam Neeson and Rolf Fiennes ham it up as use and heads. Are they cheesy? Yes, more so than a pizza, but they are supposed to be. Now, it's not like everything in the movie imitates the original. A Triton swam Worthington replaces a mob-headed Harry Hamlin as Perseus. Some have had issue with Worthington's character and performance. Clash of Titans tells the story of Perseus Sam, who is actually the son of Zeus, but has been adopted and brought up by a fisherman, Peter Postlethwaite, and his family. Perseus' adopted family is destroyed by Argos soldier, and Perseus is captured and taken back to the city of Argos. The right of Hades, king of the underworld, is invoked when king compares the beauty of his daughter, Princess Andromeda, to that of the goddess Aphrodite. Hades demands that either the Princess Andromeda by sacrifice to the Kraken, a fierce 200-foot monstrous created by Hades in 10 days, or Argos will be destroyed. A mystery woman named Gemma, who is an immortal and has been watching over Perseus his entire life, convinced Perseus that killing the Kraken will enable him to destroy Hades and avenge the death of his family. Perseus sets off this quest, along with Lo and a group of soldiers led by Draco. They encounter the heroes, Stygians, witches, magical sand creatures called Neeson, giant scorpions, and Medusa, a giant snake with a woman's torso in place of snake's head. Team. Flying demon-like creatures attack a group of soldiers. They pick the soldier up with their talons and throw them to the ground. Hades appears and throws a large ball of fire at a fishing boat containing Perseus, his father, mother, and sister, with all four sinking with the boat. Perseus' father, mother, and sister drown. Perseus sees his father trapped in the boat and watches his father as he had thrown. Strands of black smoke curl into a banquet room coming together to form a ball of the fire which then sucks in a number of soldiers. We hear the soldiers screaming. We see soldiers beating Perseus, punching him in the stomach, and then threatening him by holding Perseus over a fire before they are stopped. We hear a man talking about murdering his wife and her unborn child. We hear about a god raping a woman. Two soldiers are standing in a forest. We hear a crunching sound and see that one of the soldiers has been stabbed through the back. Shoddy's images of attacker are shown, followed by a quick glimpse of the second soldiers being torn apart and the pieces thrown away. No blood and gore is depicted. The attacker bites Perseus on the arm, spitting out a bitten piece of flesh, impales a number of soldiers with a sword, and crushes the skulls of others with his bare hands. The attacker's hand is cut off, and we see it lying on ground with blood dripping from the wound. Perseus and several soldiers are attacked by several giant scorpions. The scorpions use their giant glass claws to pick up soldiers and throw them through the air. A soldier is impaled through the back by a spike on the tip of a scorpion's tail and then slammed to the ground. Although no blood or gore is depicted, a soldier stabs a scorpion in the mouth and the scorpion vomits green goo over the soldier. Later we see Perseus covered in green goo break his way out from inside one of his scorpions. A man places his hand into the flames of a fire, and the hand is shown blackened and smoldering to a crowd of people. A 7-foot tall humanoid-like creature wrapped in cloth used supernatural power to knock down several soldiers. When Perseus and his men confront Medusa, 3 of the soldiers are knocked from a ledge into a pit of lava. One soldier is shot through the chest with an arrow, with the head of the arrow protruding from the man's back. The soldier breaks out the arrow protruding from the chest, with some blood shown. A number of soldiers look upon the Medusa and are instantly turned to stone. The Medusa wraps a humanoid creature in her tail, and the creature explodes. Perseus severs Medusa's head from her body. A man impales a woman through the back with a sword. The tip of the sword projects from her chest and she is lifted into the air and thrown. A short time later, Perseus impales the same man through the chest. The Kraken is a 200-foot monster shown lunging at a woman who is tied between 2 stone pillars. The Kraken looks as if he is about to eat the woman before he can. Perseus holds up the Medusa head in front of it, and the creature turns to stone. In addition to the above-mentioned violent scene, there are some scenes in this movie that could scare or disturb children under the age of 13 including the following. Hades when materializes out of the smoke and uses his power to make a woman age. Instantly we see the skin on her face bubble and blacken hair it burning and then see her lying dead on the floor. A man standing on a cliff is struck by lightning and we see his burnt flesh. Later we see the same man with horrific burn deformities to his face and head. As a result of the lightning strike, the skin on top of the man's head is peeled back, revealing disfigured flesh underneath. A black cloud swells up from the ocean and transforms into a number of winged demons with mouths full of large pointy teeth. During another scene, a similar black cloud transforms into the god Hades. A swayed hand reanimate and crossed away turning into a giant scorpion. Drops of blood split on the ground and turn into the giant scorpion. There are many images of humanoid creatures bound in cloth wrappings that resemble Egyptian mummies. The creature's skin resembles tree bark. They have yellow rotting teeth and blue glowing eyes. One of these creatures opens his chest to reveal his beating heart. After being stung on the arm by a giant scorpion, Perseus' arm began to take on a backlash, mummified appearance with the veins in his arm turning black and standing out. Hundreds of children are shown lying in the street of Argos, apparently starving the Stygians, which is our three hideous ancient women with grotesque eyeless heads and mouths full of sharp rotting teeth. One of the witches holds a magical eyeball in her hand that appears as freshly plucked from someone's head. We see a number of human skeletons thrown across the ground. When Perseus goes to the underworld, he encounters a grim pair like ferryman who looks like a grotesque skeleton with flesh and muscles. Entwined with the ferry itself, animated corpses appear to be pulling the ferry through the water. Medusa resembles a giant snake with a woman's torso in place of the snake's head. The woman's torso is covered with a snake-like scale, and in place of hair, the woman's head is covered in live snake. Medusa's face changes from pretty to snake-like, with red glowing eyes and a mouth containing large fangs. She moves extremely fast, has a skipped trail, capable of impaling men. She fires the bow, killing a number of men, and is able to turn all who look at her to stone. The Kraken is a giant 200-foot monster with numerous tentacle-like arms, a goatish head and mouth full of large sharp fang-like teeth. Women wearing how-cut dresses and displaying bare shoulders hang over a balcony, propositioning men in a suggestive manner. The inference is that the women were prostitutes. The Perseus changes his appearance to resemble a woman's husband and climbs onto the bed and on top of the woman. The image is stopped, but narration continues that Zeus deceived the woman and he has sex with her. While engaged in sword practice with the woman, Perseus managed to pin the woman to the ground in an implied unusual manner. There was some drinking of wine from Gaber's. Princess Andromeda's father tells her to drink something, tells her it might make you more lively. There is more low-level coarse language including hell, bitch, bastard. Clash of Titans is a fantasy, action-adventure film targeted at younger adolescent males. There is a little in the film in terms of either character, story development or hardcore action to hold the interest of most adults or even older adolescents. The films contain no memorable performances, with Sam Worthington's performance the best of a bad ones. The main message from this movie are the importance of one's own humanity, that love for one's family is worth fighting for. Values in this movie that parents may wish to reference with their children include sacrificing oneself to save the lives of others, family love. This movie could also give parents the opportunity to discuss with their children's attitudes and behavior and their real life consequences. such as the effect that being vain and self-centered can have on others as well as oneself. Clash of Titans are a remake of the 1981 cult classic of the same name. The original with stop motion animation effect by legend Ray Harryhausen earned its status because of Harryhausen's work on the film, and it was ripe for remaking because of its dated quality, the hammy nature of star Harry Hamlin, and the overall generic quality of the production. The creature's effect, however, demand your attention, particularly the unforgettable depiction of the snake-headed Medusa. That movie know how to incorporate fun into an adventure. It's a movie that many youths, including myself, grew up loving, but now looking back as an adult, the adventure is better than other cheesy, dated and even insufferable to sit through. The same can be said for this remake. But before getting into the meat of this movie, let me first make a confession to you. Director Warner Bros. Has released Clash of the Titan in both standard and 3D formats, and I did not see this film in 3D in truth. Whenever these are press screening their plan to show a movie in 3D, I avoid them like the plug and instead see the movie on opening day in a standard presentation. This is because, in my experience, the 3D gimmicks adds nothing to do respective movie and in many cases takes away from the screen story. It's a personal choice on my part, but I also recommend that you moviegoers avoid 3D in this case specifically. The filmmakers completed shooting and then added a Fox third dimensions effect this fact, making the effect lackluster and not true 3D. And I cannot speak for the quality of 3D in Clash of the Titans, and I can say that majority of critics have all but exclusively centered their reviews on how terrible the 3D device is for this film. Some have even confessed to removing the 3D glasses mid-films and tolerating the resulting blurriness just to avoid enduring the shoddy effect. Whether you are a fan of the 3D trend or not, know that this is review is based on 2D version and does not base copy itself with a 3D 2D discussion. That said, directors Louis Leterrier, Helmer of The Incredible Hulk and Transporter 2, has made a movie empty of emotions that audience can relate to. Character motivations never extend beyond anger and revenge and spite. This temper tantrum of a movie follows Perseus on a perilous quest to slay the Olympian god because he killed his mother and adopted family. To complete his task, Perseus joins forces with a legion from the city of Argos, which will be destroyed by Hades by order from Zeus. For the lack of faith in the gods, Hades gives Argos an ultimatum: sacrifice Princess Andromeda to the Kraken, or the monstrous elemental beast will destroy all of the Argos. So Perseus sets out to discover a way to defeat the Kraken, and therein get revenge on the gods for killing his family. Curiously, he is not so worried about saving Andromeda. Unlike the original Greek myth, Perseus' quest is not motivated by his love for Andromeda. Instead, Perseus has daddy issues that can only be resolved by defying the gods and proving that humans are capable of anything. Of course, Perseus is not quite human. He is a demigod fed by Zeus, which quickly explains why, after being a fisherman all his life, he is able to wield a sword like a pro after only one obligatory training session. His hastily fonts like come in handy and impress his skeptical warrior cohorts from Argos, when they battled giant scorpion, barkman, Stygian witches, harpies, Medusa, and finally the Kraken. His quest is understandable. The Greek gods make it easy to believe that life is unfair and the world is an awful place. Various secrets good makes life pretty relaxing for those who believe in it. After all, Christians believe their God loves everyone. So when bad things happen, it's confusing as to why God would allow them to occur, hence this saying. The Lord worked in the mysterious ways. The Greeks had a better view. They saw a god in more human terms. Every god on Mount Olympus was capable of being selfish or evil, wakeful or cowardly, shameful or brave. Human behavior makes sense when you compare it to Greek gods, whose leader Zeus spends the majority of his time raping mortals in animal form. Moreover, it's easier to deem the god cruel when they are so humanized and therefore fallible, making things on earth easier to explain when considering who's in charge. But don't expect any commentary in a movie about gods and whether or not they should be worshipped. The story is used merely as a setting, employ computerized special effects, and spend a lot of money doing so. The movie seeks to be an action picture, nothing more. Later it shoots on epic scale with a surprising lack of clarity. The 5-star captured with a shaky cam and over-edited. In the result is usually indecipherable. Winged horses appear is one scene, but I could not tell you what they look like. The editing and camera work did not stay still long enough to catch even a glimpse. What's more, the creatures are made with cheap looking CGI, most notably Medusa, who thankfully is not played by Uma Thurman, say or rather don't say. Percy Jackson's and the Olympians' dilating tip. There should have been a real actress behind Medusa face, someone to evoke her madness as is Medusa is rendered with computer animation that looks stale and bland, and unexpressive video game animation has looked better. The outcome makes what should have been the most haunting battle in the movie into the most disappointing. But a lackluster effect could have been forgiven if only the story was there, and it was not considered the original myth, in which Perseus is angered by the gods because they put his true love and the media on the serving platter for the Kraken. Now there's a battle that will involve an audience. What better? Universal driving there than love. And how often do you so in epic blockbuster where there is not a hero reducing his lady in some form or another? This movie proceeds on the sole motivation of revenge, of which the stakes are hardly implanted. Here Perseus made to fall for his gold, or seeing Guardian's angle of sorts. Low, but their development only dragged on in the end, as if the filmmaker said, whoops, away. Aside from his uninvolving plot, the production feels uninspired. Notice the Presidio rock meets the classical epic score by Ramin, in which impact blows on varied shares are synchronized with notes in the music to a cheesy effect. Why any of the powers that be making his movie thought rock ESQ music fit with Greek mythological fantasy is beyond comprehension. The decision almost recalled the electronic metal score by Paul Haselinger that Universal scrapped for the Wolfram, except here the studios made the wrong choice and included it. Dejwadi's music does nothing to involve the viewer or support the movie but rather distract the audiences with its incongruences. There are positive aspects of the productions, namely everything that occurs on Mount Olympus. The art design of these scenes is wonderful, from the lens flare legend visual to their otherworldly atmosphere. This set look like somewhere gods would be. Liam Neeson's clad in shimmery armor plays Zeus, who is perhaps the only interesting character in the movie besides Hades. Here played by Rolf Fiennes in full Voldemort mode. Their scene together carry more weight and tension than any of the silly battle content, as it's evident that these are actors who know how to act throughout their dog, long wigs and a bushy fake beard. On the flip side, however, Worthington is as still as can be. He does not bother trying to hide his Australian accent at all, and is seemingly incapable of showing any emotions beyond anger. Bankable also don't necessarily indicate excellent, either for how much money was spent on the production. They might have included at least the faintest plot or characters development to engage us. The movie plays like a procession of unintelligible action scenes, strung together by the thinnest narrative thread. Regardless, Clash of Titans will not be doubt make a lot of money opening on Easter weekend, when audiences will enjoy the characteristics of humanity rebelling against the gods, especially with all the church sex abuses scandal in the headline as of late, and for audiences in the mood to blow some clash cash on mindlessly zoning out to popcorn munching action. This movie will probably serve them well. What it wants to do is linger in your memory after leaving the theater. For a Hollywood spectacle that should have wowed audiences with its grandiose exhibition, Clash of the Titans not only does not live up to the expectations, it underwhelms frustrating degrees of mature. I made plans to see Clash of the Titans with friends on a Friday night. I got here and it on the way to the theater. My friends called his accident a gift from the gods that spared me from the horrors of this remake. One of my friends needed an hour of post movie therapy in the theater lobby after it was over, but I did finally watch it. When I first wrote this review, it was scratching. I did it in Clash of Titans off as one of the worst I have ever seen, having slept on it. I think my deep dislike for the movie stems from nostalgia and affection for the original. I try to look at it again objectively if I would never seen the 1981 classic and I did not know anything about Greek mythology. Would I enjoy Louis Leterrier's new version? I would love to be able to put those two factors aside, but I won't because that's the risk of filmmakers to book. This could have been a great movie, but it is not. The film maintains only the most superficial resemblance to the original. That is, a demigod, son of Zeus, named Perseus, is enlisted to save the city of Argos and his princess Andromeda from destruction with the aid of some divine weapons and a winged horse. He killed Medusa and uses her head to defeat the Kraken. Everything else is different. Sam Worthington's Perseus is a far cry for the sweet and naive demigod Harriman gave us in 1981. In this version, there is no romance between him and Andromeda. He is paired up with the interested, instead a character that does not appear in the myth or the original film. Here she steps into the role of Perseus' guide, replacing the cat-loving playwright Ammon. The lovable old boo only gets about 15 seconds of screen time. The sea goddess Thetis, originally played by Maggie Smith, is not in this film. Therefore, Calibos has been changed from her son and Andromeda's husband to be into the husband of Perseus' own mother in this reboot. Calibos has been transferred by Zeus as punishment for tossing Danny and baby Perseus into a coffin and dumping them into the sea to die. Calibos is irrelevant in this reboot. We see next to nothing of any gods other than Zeus and Hades, who's not in the original video. The characterization of the two divine brothers is articulous, filtered through the Christian's lens of good and evil. Zeus is depicted as a bright, loving father who draws power from humankind's devotion. Hades is a dark, evil demon who draws power from fear. The new Clash of Titans does not just remove many of the original's classic and most beloved elements. It makes some notable additions, such as inhuman desert sorcerers that have an uncanny resemblance to Toscan's Ritter. They are called Digins in the movie, as if that makes more sense. And finally, I did not like the look of the film. The costumes, the hair and beard style, the places, and so forth, with everything we know about this ancient world and falling movies, like Gladiator and Troy, and shows like HBO's Rim. There is just no excuse to make a movie about a classical world look so shady. The special effects are good and Medusa was cool, but it does not offer enough visual thriller to affect its deficient Out the script, it's really a shame to waste the talents of such fine actors such as Liam Neeson, Rolf Fiennes, and Rolf Polly Walker. It's a greater shame to waste your hard-earned money on this film. The gods of classical mythology have always been selfish and capricious, but in a temperate, grand, passionate style, sort of like Dallas in heaven. In the new Clash of the Titans, that gods are about as grand and passionate as the champagne sun, and not a tenth as interesting. The original 1981 Clash of the Titans have gave us Zeus portrait by Laurence Olivier with a sort of dissolute Partication dignity. As played by Liam Neeson in the remake, he is merely grumpy and vacillating. No wonder he is half human. Sam Precious, Sam Worthington, keep telling anyone who will listen that he is a man, not a god. Clash of Titans takes the scandalizing bent for 2004 film Troy a step further. Troy retold one of the best known Greek myths as a purely human story. Leaving out the gods, Clash of the Titans goes further. The god are not just ignored, there's all but determined. Over and over. From the opening voiceover onward, we are told how the gods, specifically Zeus, made mankind selfishly to bask in and it draws a trend from their prayer and adoration. The men continually tell one another that this arrangement benefit the gods much more than it does the human, and it's high time for man to rebel against the god, throw off the yoke of servitude, and take their fate into their own hands. The gods, meanwhile, warn on one another that the human's rebellion must be suppressed before it gets out of hand. Man must be punished and remanded after bliss. Had it working hard to make his holding God for the underworld as different as possible from his signature, Baldy from hell. Baltimore plays Zeus like a lair, pursuing him that releasing the Kraken on the uppity citizen of Argos, who are white holding prayer and worship like an underwelcome tax, is a good way to get the love flowing heavenward again. Switching up Francis and Neeson's might have been an interesting movie. In reality, Hades' goal is not man's love, but their fear, which feeds him as devotion sustains Zeus. Releasing the Kraken is a gambit to strengthen Hades against Zeus, enabling him to escape the underworld and seize Olympus for his own. The Kraken appears courtesy of Davy Jones and the East India Company. In the defeat of the Kraken is taken straight from the original Clash. At least both versions of Clash realizes that defeating the Kraken is an important event that ought to be in the actual movie core Verbinski. One of the few Clash worst movie